She reminds Jake of that little boy. She reminds Jake. She doesn't remind him of it's. Wow, Jake.
That remind me of that little boy.
Cassie's really gumping it up right now.
In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Katherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks.
These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Absorb his friends
to get a taste of his home life that he misses so much. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you know what? I think he might describe something like that in chapter 24.
Okay. With a toothsome grin.
The pieces start coming together for Jake. So that's why Fenestre had his men shoot any animal that came near his mansion. It could have been Visser 3 in disguise. Jake asks how Fenestre's Yeerk is surviving without access to a Yeerk pool, though. Obviously, the Yeerk has made a replica of a Yeerk pool in this room, but he doesn't have access to a Kandrona. Fenestre says that he has found a way to survive without a Kandrona, but he won't say how. Cassie thought speaks to Jake privately, saying that Fenestre is hiding something. But what? Jake tries to keep Fenestre talking. He says that Visser 3 could have killed Fenestre at any time. Why hasn't he then? Fenestre can't help but take the bait. He tells Jake that Visser 3 needs him alive because Fenestre has information that Visser 3 wants. How to survive without a Kandrona. There's a way to process and refine Kandrona ways. Kandrona ways. There's a way to process and refine Kandrona rays from another source, Fenestre says, to turn Kandrona rays into an edible product that a human host can consume. But it's just not a desirable one for most Yeerks, given that the edible product is Yeerks themselves.
What?
In order to survive without a Kandrona, Esplin 9466, the Yeerk inside of Fenestre, has become a cannibal. But why should the Animorphs care that Fenestre is eating other Yeerks? Doesn't that make their fight just a little bit easier? But, that is what I said. But then Jake asks how Fenestre is acquiring the Yeerks to eat. And Fenestre replies that's exactly what the website is for, to attract the attention of controllers so that he can extract the Yeerks from inside their heads.
Yes.
Cassie asks how exactly Fenestre is extracting the Yeerks from the controllers. He responds, how do you think?
So I have a list of ideas that I think are actually pretty fun. I'm thinking maybe he gets them with a little ear plunger just to go ee, 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 and then the Yeerk just comes poop right out the ear.
Or a Q-tip.
And then, with a Q-tip with a little plunger, and you just a tiny little plunger, or maybe little tweezers, or a little whistle that makes the Yeerks really upset and then they come out, or maybe a little baited mouse trap that they put out with Yeerk food on it, and then at night the Yeerk's I could probably get out and back in before my host even, and then snap. Stuff like that. I think those are my ideas.
I only had one, Chris, but mine was
none of them hurt the human.
Yes, which is what I went for with mine as well. A thick, those straws, those thick straws that you get for milkshakes.
Oh, yes, that the boba can go through.
Yes, you put it
the boba
nose, and then you just suck, and the Yeerk gets stuck in the straw, and then...
Can I suck your nose, bro? Can I suck the Yeerk out of your nose?
See, I had this idea that maybe he invades the brain, they go ear to ear, and Esplin crawls into the other brain and beats the Yeerk up and shoves him out.
It's like a boarding party.
Boxing gloves.
And a little plank comes out of one ear, and then little Yeerk Sparrow comes out with a sword and boards the Captain Yeerk Sparrow.
Captain Yeerk Sparrow. This is the tale of Captain Yeerk Sparrow.
Or is it just kind of eating a pomegranate and you crack open the skull and just take the...
I think it's probably more like some kind of beheading. I think it's probably pretty gruesome.
Here's the problem. If he is killing 10 people a month, there is no way he is keeping that a secret. He cannot be killing 10 people a month at his home.
Well, and it also, like, it really exposes his neutrality as a force in the world if he's killing equal parts humans to Yeerks, right? Like, at some point, it's not worth it to the Animorphs to be like...
he can be killing Yeerks all he wants, but, like, if he was killing humans, people would be noticing. He could not be killing this many people
I think the implication is that it's murder.
Yes, I agree.
I don't think the humans die. I don't think it would work. I don't think it would logically work or practically work for him to kill the humans. I think he probably has some sort of memory
But why
wipe
would
device.
Cassie care if the humans are not dying?
She is assuming the humans are being harmed, and they may be being harmed. Maybe they're driven insane, but I don't think he can be killing them. I don't think that's possible.
I think it is the implication here. I think the memory wipe device, if we hadn't seen that already, that would be too remarkable for him to like also have that. And I think he probably can't just behead the thing and then throw it back into, like, throw a beheaded body out and have people not ask questions. But maybe he's doing some kind of operation where he's like killing people and putting them in a place. But serial killers get away with things for periods of...
Not this many people this fast.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I don't think this many people could be disappearing at this rate. I also find it hard to believe he's finding this many people through the chat room. But
imagine if he found Gump, right? So he finds Gump.
Right.
And Gump's dad is Yeerked. So he commandeers Gump, gets his Yeerk, kills Gump. Gump's dad is Yeerked. He's not like a normal human who would go looking for his son or contacting the police. So I think that...
But he would report that the Yeerk was going... Well, that doesn't matter, I guess, because they're not going to kill him until they get the information from him. But he wouldn't be showing up at school. He wouldn't be, the police would find out.
But the Yeerks are in the police.
I guess so.
I don't think...
The number of people who would be vanishing from the world...
30.
Would be staggered. 30 in 3 months.
Yeah. But it's like 10 a month, just like you said. Like 10...
And I guess if he's uber rich, he could be doing it all over the country. He could be finding them wherever.
Look,
but
I don't,
he has to get the Yeerk back.
I'm not saying I
just think it's unlikely.
Well, yeah,
I think it's very unlikely.
But I do think it's what the book is suggesting.
Yes, and I think that's the power of them doing how do you think? Like, they let it sit in the realm of the unspeakable, but I do think it's unspeakable because it's actually so... The implication is that it's so awful what's happening here.
I think it's because Cassie is going to fly off the handle in reaction to that question and is in danger of blowing their cover for caring about the humans.
So your pitch is that if he had just been a little less of a theater kid, everything would have ended different. He would have been like, how do you think?
Yeah, he'd have just answered.
I use tweezers. I just, they're fine. I let the humans back out and I tell them never to
Don't you know about the Konami code and how to input it on a human to eject the Yeerk?
Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of...
Maybe, what if they had put a little, as they're surveying the ground, oh, it looks like he has a graveyard of sorts in the backyard, and those look like fresh graves. And then they just left it there, and it's like, oh no, he's been burying the people.
That would be extremely telling if you had a graveyard that got bigger on your land. Yeah,
he's actually out back digging a grave at the.
Yeah, as we speak. No, he's got people.
No, how does he buy? How does he buy enough sitting coffins for all his victims?
He's got this massive staff, and two can keep a secret if one of them is dead. This would have gotten out if his staff knew people were dying. This would not be a secret. I'm sorry, he's got this many guards. I don't care how much he's paying them. Somebody's gonna know. It's not staying secret. It's just not.
What is being implied? The amount of control and camaraderie he has and whatever. We're talking what was that group in the Iraq war, Blackwater or whatever? It was the mercenary group.
Yeah.
It's we're talking about a level of fucked upness here that just seems unfortunately real. But
yeah, I guess.
I'm just saying, I don't know. Anyway,
this was the best day at work for them for this team, they are bored
Oh, yes.
so much of the time. Like,
Oh yeah.
that's why they started shooting the ceiling.
They had been doing frickin' hawk drills like twice a month, being like, when is this gonna come up? And then today, it's like, oh,
this is why we train.
Yeah.
should I pull the rhino lever? The guy was saying, and he's like, yeah, fucking break the glass. It's time. This is a real situation.
This is not a drill. This is not a rhino drill.
This is not a rhino drill. Oh man.
Chapter 25?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll read
Chapter
this
25.
one. Cassie is disgusted by Fenestre. She charges in wolf morph at the controller, but Jake, as a tiger, pounces on Cassie to stop her. He tells her that they've already promised not to hurt Fenestre. Cassie asks if Jake understands what Fenestre just admitted to, that he is murdering the human host to devour the Yeerks inside of them
So
to get
I
to the juicy
assume that
center.
was the truth.
She doesn't say
Yeah.
that.
Jake says that he does understand. It's terrible, he admits. But Cassie's like, Jake, don't you dare even finish that sentence. Is he seriously weighing whether the benefit of what Fenestre is doing, killing a few Yeerks, is greater than the harm he's enacting against their human hosts? Cassie tells Jake that if he finishes his thought, she may never forgive him for having ever thinked. She reminds Jake of that little boy. She reminds Jake. She doesn't remind him of it's wow. Jake,
That remind me of that little boy.
Cassie's really gumping it up right now. She reminds Jake of the little boy in the chat room. What if his father turns him into a controller and Fenestre catches the two of them next? 6 more days for Fenestre. Jake
I'm still laughing at gumping it up. Cassie's really gumping it up.
It's a big gump to get over. Jake asks what they should do then. He asks if Cassie is prepared to kill Fenestre to stop what's happening. And in turn, she asks if Jake will do it instead. Your morph would do it better, she says. You want me to get rid of him for you, Jake asks. Well, I'm not going to do it. I love Fenestre. Cassie wants Fenestre dead, but she isn't willing to kill him herself. Is she willing to let that blood be on Jake's little paws instead?
His little
paws. Oh, there's more. Sorry. Fenestre is watching all of this happen. He's fascinated. The Animorphs are conversing privately in thought speak, but he is beginning to piece together the reality of what is in front of him. Why should the Andalites care so much about the deaths of humans? But Jake narrates that he can tell that the truth of their identities has not come to Fenestre yet. Got it. Okay. Jake demands that Fenestre relax his asshole, Axe, and Rachel.
Release Axe and Rachel.
Releases Axe. Sorry, it got strung together in my mouth there for a second. And yeah. Anyway, they'll let Fenestre live if they get them back, though. But only so long as he stays within his mansion. Okay, so we're going to let him live if he never leaves the house. If they ever run into him outside of the mansion, this protection will not stand. They leave his mansion. Rachel is disoriented. She asks the man back at the mansion. No. She asks if that man back at the mansion was a good guy or a bad guy. Jake doesn't know how to answer that question. He's not even sure if he's a good guy or a bad guy anymore. He's just a wild
Chris, can I say, the point of these summaries is so that the listener can follow along to what happened in the book. And so often, you make it impossible to follow the summary.
I don't know what you're talking about. I got everything. So Jake does some quick work when Cassie gets mad, and he's like, Finestre's like, why would you care about humans? And he's like, no, it's just that my friend has lost people in the Yeerk fight. Don't read too much into it. It's not all about you. Fuck off. But I think, he's killing 10 Yeerks a month. This man is killing 120 Yeerks a year. And I don't think he can possibly be killing that many humans. So I say let him go. But I get it. Rachel is alive. He takes them out of stasis, and Jake is eyeing her body to look for breathing. He's like, okay, she's breathing. And he tells her to immediately start demorphing because they're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And she's like, there's someone here. And he's like, well, we'll get you out of here before that matters. We got to go. Mm-hmm. And she's like, did I do good? Do I still have all my wisdom teeth? And he's like, yeah, bud.
No, they took those.
No,
from
they took
you.
them out. Like, can we get ice cream?
Yes, we can get ice cream. Yeah.
There was some stuff that was a little bit. Well, first I want to say, so when I was writing these summaries, I did take it as canon, like the implied canon of the books that they were killing the humans. So I wrote that into the summary.
Which is not explicitly
Yes.
stated. You
I
can say it's
definitely-
implied, and I'll say that it is implied, but I think it's
I will say it is refreshing on an episode of Anidorks for me not to be in the argument. Like, I don't have a dog in this race. I just am glad that Eddie and Miranda are mad at each other.
Why are
for
you
once.
racing dogs?
Yeah. I wanted to know who was the fastest.
The other thing I want to bring up is just, were you two confused? Like, I think we should spend a lot of time on the argument because I think that's the interesting thing. But between Jake and Cassie. But were you two confused about, did Rachel demorph in front of Fenestre?
No,
So I think they
she began
just
to, but she
swirled
was
her
not.
away.
She was becoming uneagle, but Marco was like holding her and like tilting
And
her
took her
away.
out. Yeah.
Okay.
But they did
And the argument had mostly finished up by the time he actually unfreezes Rachel. Like they're like leaving.
They did all demorph back into humans and run across his lawn, like as
Yeah.
humans, barefoot little children, and it's just so funny because it's like
We won't attack you in your house, and also don't look out the window for 10 minutes.
exactly right.
Wait, where does it say that they crossed the lawn as humans?
It's in there.
I guess
it's definitely in there.
No, it doesn't. It says Tobias flew, blah, blah, blah. We stumbled and trotted down the stairs through the wreckage of the house and outside into the fence-defended yard. By the time we reached the trees, Rachel was Rachel again. We all demorphed. So it's when they get to the tree.
The same tree that hit a rhino earlier.
The tree line. The tree line is very
The
important.
receding tree line.
Yeah.
The McDuff.
Listen, the tree line is hitting its 30s and it's starting to consider hymns, okay?
Can we talk about the argument though? Like, it sounds like we all feel like Cassie seems to want Fenestre to die, right? She wants.
Well, she wants Esplin 9466 to die.
Yes.
And she is willing to make Fenestre a casualty of that because he willingly allied with this Yeerk.
Yeah,
so, like,
yeah.
Yeah. But she doesn't want to kill him herself. And
No, I don't want to commit murder. I just want this war to go the way I like. Like, come on,
Yeah,
Cassie.
But I'm not going to show up to the meetings.
and Jake, I'm not going to say that he wants Esplin 9466 or Fenestre in this case to live, but it's like he's kind of thinking through it in real time and hasn't really.
He's doing he made a promise to him.
Yes.
And there's a chance that this could be cashed in for something. They know they have someone who's also against Visser 3. Yes, he's doing terrible things and it might be better if he was gone. But like, this is not, are we ready to close the door on
The
this?
enemy
Like,
of my frenemy is my bestie.
Yeah.
exactly. And also, like, sometimes in Survivor, you have to make strategic promises that you intend to go back
Yeah.
on.
But you got to make
Okay,
it out
you have
of the
to
room.
tell them.
Right.
Yeah, you have to tell them to plan. Or you have to tell them a plan, but that's not what you're necessarily going to do at tribal council.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Wait,
but
are
they
you
have to
saying that
feel
they
safe
lie
going into tribal
on
council.
Survivor?
Wait, and I do have to spoil something. We already know what we're doing for the next season of Survivor. It's a blood versus water season, and Esplin 9466 and Joe Bob Fenestre will be competing together.
No, wouldn't it be
together.
blood versus water? It would be Visser 3 and
Oh, that's also
Well, so he's also playing, but he's playing with Aloran.
yes.
oh, okay. Then I accept.
Hosts versus Yeerks. Is that what it'd be?
Why did you write the words "punch me in my own
Oh,
real
because
face"?
the thing
I
when
just
they're
want to
having
know.
when they're having this argument, the thing that seems to be happening for Jake experientially, it's a valid question, Miranda, and I'm taking it very seriously.
That's why you got out your hanky.
Yeah. Hey, but the point is, Jake is having these big embodied emotional reactions to a lot of the things he's encountering here. He wanted to like literally punch Marco in the face for what he had said.
Yes.
When Cassie says this line to him of like, I want you to do it, or I forget what, or like, I forget what the exact
Your morph
lines.
would be better. Yeah.
And he's like, it felt like she punched me in my own real face, is what he says, or something along those
He does
lines.
say that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he does say it felt like she'd punched me in my own real face. I don't know how I didn't highlight that. That's an incredible
It's
line.
an incredible line. So yeah, that's why I wrote it down, is because it was great. But he's like having, his drama is so embodied, this book. Like, it's like nothing is hypothetical. He's getting like, he's really getting hit hard. Like, it's just interesting, and it's there in
He's
the
getting
language.
punched in his own real face.
Yeah.
No, I think it's like a valid ethical concern that Cassie is raising, but I also think like she's again not willing to put in the dirty work, and as she has shown she is unwilling to do.
I mean,
of actual fighting.
My generous read is that they're both trying to figure this out in the moment, and
Yes.
they both have different ethical standards from which to do it, and they're both operating with a limited amount of time. Nobody is right or wrong here, but if they did elect Jake the leader, then like it's a little.
She should listen. If you said I want you to make these choices for me,
that's
then
I think
don't whine when I make
that's
the
I
choice.
think where like Jake's like momentary like this is hard thing, because Marco and Cassie have been really hard on him this whole book. It's not that she should blindly listen. I'm not arguing that.
No, that's not what I mean.
Yeah, I'm just saying like I think the generous read is they're both just working as quickly as possible to get to the most ethical outcome, and they disagree on what that is.
And it makes sense that this would cause a conflict like this. And also, I think for me, even though Cassie's annoying in this moment, what I've wanted up to this point in the series is actually for Cassie to get as much of a chance to be annoying as everyone else has gotten to be. Because I feel like Cassie is the least flawed character. And I like that maybe what's emerging here is that Cassie is the least ethically, emotionally prepared to become what a war is going to make her become. Like, I feel like that's an interesting thing for her. And even if she's not going about it the right way, the problem that she's confronting is a real problem without easy answers. So that's, I don't know, it's fun to see.
I do think that her pick to off Fenestre is about as good as any option in this situation.
Yes.
I don't know if it's the most strategic, but also working with Fenestre is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And
because he's going to want the spotlight constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Always.
Yeah. You're going to get to Final Tribal and he's never going to shut up.
Yeah. You can't bring him to Final Tribal.
Cannot bring Fenestre to Final Tribal. Let's put that in writing.
Are
we sure though, or is he a Russell Hand?
Oh, he is a
like
Russell
an
Hand.
I always get to Final Tribal, but no one will fucking vote for me.
Yes, and Jake's gonna be Parvati, I think. Or no, Sandra, Cassie.
I
Sandra.
kind of love that for Jake. Jake is Parvati.
Yeah,
like
I do think the most important question is the one that Cassie asks, though. Well, she doesn't ask it. She says, yours is better for killing. Which morph of all the morphs we've acquired so far should we use to kill Fenestre? I think Cassie's whale morph would be fun. Roll over
That's
him.
like casting fireball.
It's like,
it's like, I didn't ask who's in the room. I didn't ask how big it was. I said I cast fireball.
Did I stutter?
Oh, well, then he'd get slowly crushed in a room that looks like his home planet. That's kind of nice.
It's kind of nice. It's like
that's kind of
moe.
That's kind of sweet. Yeah.
And they want to destroy the house anyway. That much is clear. So,
yeah.
And if the stairs can't hold a rhino, the house can't hold a whale.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's giving shards of Darlene.
Yeah.
Chunks of Darlene.
Chunks of Darlene. Damn it.
The sequel is Shards of Darlene.
Yeah, that's the one that I saw first because I didn't realize. And
in elephants in glass houses shouldn't throw shards of Darlene.
That's right. So I wrote a really long description of chapter 26, and I can read it, but I thought maybe we just take it scene by scene. Or we could just take it,
sure,
like
paragraph by paragraph.
No, I think he means we're going to pause during
Jake and his mom, and then Cassie and Jake and Gump, like we can do it like that. So I'll start with...
sure, got it.
Okay, chapter 26. The gang returns to their homes. Jake finds himself just staring into space in his bedroom, mumbling through his family dinner. He goes outside and sits on his childhood swing. The stars aren't beautiful, he says. They're deadly. All his problems came from the stars. Jake's mom comes outside of the house to check on her son. She can tell something is up with him. Of course, Jake can't tell his mom anything about what's really bothering him. She just assumes that this is a sign that he's finally a teenager. She doesn't envy him. Being a teenager is hard, she tells Jake. You have all the same problems as adults, but neither of the most valuable weapons for dealing with those problems. The first weapon that...
Jake then asks, what do you mean?
I'm thinking of Stella. We have the most powerful weapon of all, the broadsword. And they're like, no, I was thinking the truth.
The truth.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
Yeah. The truth. Yeah.
You have all the same problems as adults, but neither of the most valuable weapons for dealing with those problems. The first weapon that adults have is experience. You've survived difficult things before, and so you could probably survive whatever's coming next. The second weapon, she tells Jake, is the knowledge that you're not a teenager anymore. Because nothing is as bad as being a teenager. Jake laughs. It's a tired, weak laugh, but it's a laugh nonetheless. Nice scene.
I like this scene a lot.
Yeah, it's a nice scene.
I think there's a lot of YA and kids books where, I mean, I know we need the parents to be useless in order for it to make sense that the kids are the ones taking this on, but actually in this book that sort of isn't why it's happening. It's just that they can't tell them their secret. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, the parents could be useful in this if it was safe to tell them what was going on, but it's not.
She also kind of like obliquely brings that up herself. The mom does. Like, we should just like, do you want to read this scene with me quick?
Yeah, sure, we can read it.
All right, who's who?
I'll be mom.
All right, I'll be Jake.
What you doing out here? Thinking great thoughts?
Nah, just hanging.
It's a beautiful night. Look at the stars.
Yeah.
Is anything bothering you, Jake?
Nope.
Well, if anything was bothering you, you could probably tell me without my embarrassing you too much.
I know, Mom. It's nothing.
Well, I guess it had to happen sooner or later. You've turned into a real teenager. Mom's too out of it to talk to.
That must be it. It must be that whole teenager thing.
You know, when I was your age and feeling upset, my mother, your Gram, would always just say, "You don't know what unhappy is. You're just a kid." Like anything ruining the vibe. Like anything a kid would feel would be less difficult or painful than what an adult would feel.
That's probably true.
No, it isn't. In a lot of ways, being a kid is worse than being an adult. You have the same things to deal with. Friends, temptations, love and hate, and all that. Only you don't have the two great weapons that adults have to help them.
I cocked an eye at her. What two great weapons?
Well, the first is the broadsword. A heavy weapon needed to be wielded
You need to use both hands when you're wielding the broadsword.
It's very heavy, but it's really effective against plate armor.
But for real.
The first is experience. Experience maybe doesn't make you smarter, but it means you can think, hey, I had something like this happen once before, and I survived.
Okay, I'll ask. What's the second great weapon?
You are, Jake. Because as your mom, I can look at you and think, oh man, as bad as I feel right now, as bad as things may be, at least it isn't as bad as being a teenager. You know, X-Files is on. You used to love that show.
And scene. Nice. Nicely done. It's just great. It was really good.
It's really good.
It was a really good scene. It's
just like that she legitimizes that, like, kids' feelings are
valid.
And it's not just in the gentle parroting, wow, we're having a big feeling, aren't we, kind of. It's like, no, it's legitimate and it's rough. And the reason your feelings are as big and scary as they are is partially because you don't have the experience of knowing you can come through this and come out the other side and be okay. But, like, I don't know, it's just so refreshing to me, having read a lot of YA books at, like, this age, where, like, it just felt like not only were the parents not helpful, they felt like they needed to make them outright mean so that you didn't question why they weren't
Why we
trying
were
to help
acting
their
against them.
kids.
It's like how cell phones supposedly ruin movie plots. So they're like, oh, I'm out of battery. It's like, well, the parents are mean, so we can't talk to them.
Right. It's sort of a Cinderella thing, too, though, where it's like, oh, well, my dad married this woman who hates me, and he lets her be mean to me, so I can't go to my dad for help. You know what I mean? Like, it alienates the parents completely from the child in a way that these books don't do, and I really appreciate it.
And
I really appreciated it, too.
It's believable that Jake probably, there is a world in which he tells his mom about what's actually happening in his life. And she's able to provide, she actually seems like someone who could be desirable for that, could provide some comfort or help. Yeah. And it would endanger her life, and it would endanger the lives of the other Animorphs, because he actually doesn't know, maybe his mom could be having this conversation with him and be Yeerked. And the problem isn't that she's actually like a bad mom or wouldn't actually be helpful.
No, yeah.
It actually raises the stakes, because she's actually a great mom, and she still might be Yeerked, or she might still just die because the threat is that high.
Yeah, just knowing this information could put her in danger. And so, like, she's a great mom, and losing her, like, the fear of losing her is part of why we can't tell her. And, that's a really complex, like, thing to feel, I feel like. It's not as black and white as a lot of other situations.
Yeah, and weirdly, we've talked about Marco being a parentified child, but they actually all kind of are, because they all are in the position of having to protect their families, including their parents or guardians or whatever.
Yeah, or even just each other.
Yeah, and each other, yeah. I also like that, and I think the books have done this consistently, where it would be so easy where a book about 12-year-olds who are probably also going through puberty and also are morphing into animals, to have that just constantly be like a puberty metaphor or something like that. But like,
which it is sometimes.
It is sometimes, especially in that one Rachel has the Burp the Croc book. But here, it really feels potent for this one scene that, like, Jake's having this experience that he doesn't feel like his mom can relate to. And it also takes seriously that he just had to talk to an alien who's cannibalizing other aliens. Like, it both are able to coexist, and it's not especially heavy-handed with that or anything. Like, they both get to sit there. So.
It comes off really, really well. Like, they both feel like important scenes in the book, and that's, like...
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I also kind of feel like her using, only you don't have the two great weapons that adults have to help them, and Jake cocks his eye, and he's like, what two great weapons? I kind of do feel like there's a part of his 12-year-old brain is like, do we have like a ray gun in the garage or something?
This also, though, I'll say, we don't know a lot about Jake's mom, but we do know that she's a writer, and you know that she phrased that in that way, just like begging him. She was like, I want to say it like this. Please ask the question. Please ask the question.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll leave if you want me to, but I have this whole speech prepared.
Yes. She has a lot in common with Esplin in that way. 9466.
That's true.
It runs in the family.
Yeah.
Shall we move to the next scene?
Yeah,
Who
the
wants
next
to
section.
read this?
Yeah.
Miranda, you want to
I can take it, yeah.
Right.
Jake goes to school and isn't feeling much better. He's grateful for his loving parents, but they can't really understand the life or death problems he's being confronted with. They can't really help. No adult can. He looks for Cassie. Once he realizes she's not at school, he puts together where she is pretty quickly. She's helping the little boy from the chat room whose father is a controller, Gump. He morphs into a falcon and flies to Gump's school. There, he finds one little boy at the edge of the playground walking with a wolf that they've just allowed on the grounds.
Yeah.
They're not worried about. Mm-hmm. Jake figures that anyone who saw Gump talking to the wolf would think it was just a dog, but Jake knows that it's Cassie. There are stories of that happening, that people think it's a dog.
The teacher's like, God damn it, Gump's petting the wolves again.
Once Gump has returned to school, Jake and Cassie demorph in some trees. Trees are getting a lot of use in this book. Cassie tells Jake what she told Gump, that she was a magic wolf, that he shouldn't go to the chat room anymore, that he shouldn't talk to his father about Yeerks. She begins to cry. I told that little boy not to trust his father. What a terrible thing for me to do. What a filthy, disgusting thing to do. It was the best you could do, Jake says. It was all you could do. I guess it's hard to fight evil without doing some along the way. Boom! Boom! Direct to the heart. That's what it is, Cassie. You weren't willing to kill, but you're willing to lie to this little boy about his dad.
Oh my God.
So, and the thing that's interesting about him saying that is it is a rhetorical device. Like, he is still in the argument with her when he says that. And they are having a real fight that is spanning days.
Did you just do the best you could? Because sometimes you have to
Guess
do
who was
evil
doing
to
that
fight
in
evil.
the room with Fenestre yesterday? Guess who was doing the best he could?
Oh, gee, is that what happened?
But I really feel for Cassie in this moment because her heart just
me too.
breaks with what's being asked of her. And she is not as prepared to have to confront that reality. And she's 12 and shouldn't have to. But,
No.
maybe she could catch up to Jake and break her heart a little faster. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's weird that, being the most sort of seemingly emotionally competent one at the beginning of this has been sort of her Achilles heel, in that she has and does think through actions and their consequences, and that makes it much harder for her to do things that could hurt someone, even if it is a net positive. She's not able to have those messy internal calculations. She thinks of trying to of the world as sustaining itself and everything helping each other and the web of life, and she can't confront interrupting that
It makes me want to watch Star Trek Next Generation, Deanna Troi forward episodes, because they do that to Deanna Troi as well.
I hate Deanna Troi.
I don't know, I love her, but it's an acquired taste. You have to watch all 7 seasons or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't like her so much. I just don't.
But they do similar things, I feel with her, where it's
because she's an empath.
Yeah, she's and she on the ship is well balanced against the rank of the hierarchy. So she's an important mechanism for making decisions as a group. However, on her own, she can't just do that. She has to also be an actor in the
she gives input and then they make the decision, but she doesn't get her hands dirty with it.
Exactly.
And she can say that it's not the decision she likes. She can say she doesn't like it, even if it serves her.
Right.
Even if it's the right decision, she gets to be stepped back from it. And Cassie is confronting not being stepped back from these messy decisions anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting that the books haven't... I love that the books are letting these conflicts happen, especially between characters who haven't really had the fight before. It's surprising and probably deliberate that they haven't allowed or shown Rachel and Cassie having a version of this argument yet. That feels like that would be the more obvious place.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's happening with Jake here. And this does feel like maybe the most and I think this is a sign of what's to come. This is one of the more ethically fraught and emotional, complicated, messy confrontations that we've seen, I think. My heart broke when in this scene, when she had to say what she I told that little boy not to trust his father. What a terrible thing for me to do. What a filthy, disgusting thing to do. That felt like it had so much weight to it, and it felt pointed that the book went there, because it is a terrible thing that she had to do in that moment.
To put that in that kid's head that he couldn't trust his dad, because now who can he trust?
Yeah.
What life does he have?
Yeah. It was a dark book, very dark book.
But it was to keep him safe.
Yeah.
And is it better for him? That's the question, because she has to run would they have yeerked him? And the answer is, if he had told him that he had figured it out, probably yes. But if he had not, if he doesn't, he probably won't get yeerked. So if there had been a way to tell him, just don't tell your dad about this, but you can't.
And the more critical thing, I think, for his livelihood is to tell him to never go on the chat room again.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's actually threatening. If he gets yeerked, he's in harm's way, but he's not necessarily
He's not in Fenestre's way.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
Also, the thing that's definitely going to kill this little boy is that he's going to try to walk up to a wolf and pet it. That's going to be...
Oh my God,
Yeah,
same.
Yeah,
Same.
Cassie's putting a lot of dangerous ideas in this
That's
kid's
how I'm
head.
going to die.
Yeah.
And I've accepted that.
Well, I booked our little Anidorks outing for the Lidditz Wolf Sanctuary.
Woo! Dude, I was looking at that. I want to go so bad.
I got to go once. It was really, really cool. Okay. I'll read this super silly. I'm going to do a silly one, you guys. A few days later, there's a big story on the news. Fenestre's mansion had burned down. Fenestre was safe, but Jake reminds us of his promise to that man. Fenestre would be safe as long as he remained in his mansion. Now there was no mansion for him to hide within. Did the mansion burn down on its own? An act of God? Or could someone have started the fire? Visser 3, Cassie, even Jake? A week passes. Jake goes to Cassie's barn and helps her put a splint on the deer's broken leg. It was a good thing to do without any complications, no second guessing, no doubt. The rest of the gang comes over and they end up talking about flying. Any other day they'd probably morph into birds, but this time they don't. This time they remain as themselves, helping Cassie shovel the manure out of the barn. Wow, you really didn't set me up for a nice serious resolve there. You really
I will say shoveling poop is Cassie and Jake's
love language.
Yeah, it's like
absolutely.
their comfort activity, so it's very nice that they let the group in on that with them.
Critical to say about the week passing as well.
Yeah.
Lots of time passing.
Week passed.
Jake and Cassie do not talk. It's
Well,
just,
that they tell us about, yeah.
No,
They probably
I
see
think-
each other at school, but that's about it.
Hold on. I think it's no. I'm sorry. I just read this. I want to be
You're probably,
positive.
yeah, I didn't really.
Not only that, though,
No,
Chris,
no.
but the it's a few days before
A week went by.
and it's a
Oh, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
week
A
when
few days later, Cassie just walked away. I let her go. Not everything can be settled. Not everything can be smoothed over. So it does imply that they take a little pause.
but then a few
Well,
days
the rest
later,
of-
and then a week passes. So it's actually a fair amount of time for these books. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and about a week went by after the fire before I went to Cassie's house. She was in the barn taking care of sick animals. I didn't ask her any questions and she didn't ask me. I helped her do stuff. It was nice
Yeah.
because it was easy. After a while, Cassie and I started talking and even laughing.
Yeah, so they definitely really didn't talk for the week.
I guess it is ambiguous, but I guess I really read
I would
it
say
as
I think they like saw each other at school and probably said hi, but I don't think they've been hanging out. Like that's how I read it. It's not like they were avoiding each other in shared places, but they weren't going out of their
No,
way
I
to
think
see
you're
each
right.
other,
I
and they've
might have
not had
read
any
into it too
Animorphs
much. Yeah.
meetings. The others coming over is interesting. I wonder if they were supposed to have a meeting and they didn't, or if they all just simultaneously got this urge to come over to Cassie's. But one thing I'll say that I noticed here is we had talked in previous books about morphing, especially birds and flying, as an escape. And the fact that they choose not to do it
yeah.
and instead stay and do the gross, hard thing.
Yes.
I
Shoveling
think
shit.
talks
I
a
like that.
lot
I like that.
about where they've come since book 7 was Rachel doing all the flying to clear her head, and then I feel like we're coming away from that. I feel like we're seeing them commit to the fact that this is reality and we can't get away from it.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to get down in the muck and do what we have to do. Also, Axe came, which I think is interesting. It doesn't say, it says he tried to eat a cow pie, so I'm assuming he was in
See, that's
human
the part.
morph.
That's the part of the whole ending that like kind of undid the nice.
Well,
like
they
imagery.
were being silly again. It was like, hey, look, we're getting back to ourselves.
I hope he
for
didn't
now.
help.
The last lines of the book are for now.
Yeah.
Because every step Axe takes, his hoof tongue is just dragging through that manure. You know?
Again, there's no
I
hoof
know,
tongue.
I know. But
God, it would be. It's just like you would slip. Oh man, imagine walking and just leaving a wet, slimy.
That's just what snails do.
Yeah.
That's just what snails do.
I think
So-
this might be my, and I'm saying this having just read this one and not having read the other ones anytime recently, but I kind of feel like this is maybe my favorite ending so far because, and Miranda,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
did, the first time I read it really quickly, and your note when I was going back over it, like, it's such a subtle little thing that they talk about flying but stay as themselves. And that I think it's just such a good catch about that,
Yeah.
and also shows that sometimes
Yeah,
they
that's
really
great.
are paying attention to these things. Like, that was a choice
Yeah.
that they didn't have to make. And the fact that they're literally shoveling shit, which I feel like this series is actually really starting to shovel like the the emotional and ethical shit that comes with writing a book about war.
Yeah.
Like, especially him and Cassie, like they had to deal with the hard stuff. And I think we saw that in book 15 as well, like Marco having to deal with the hard stuff. And I kind of feel like if we were to pinpoint like this like vague season we've declared, like season 3, something the books have been wrestling with, and I'm thinking of Marco having that conversation with Jake, but then Jake brings it up here too, is them wanting to be, they haven't been in this war for very long, but they want to stay the same, but the war's changing them and forcing them to change. And like Jake and Cassie's relationships changing, like they're kind of having to foot the bill for what this is asking of them. And I think that's just a cool thing that's been on the mind of the series recently.
Yeah. And to see, honestly, I mean, it sounds like a little, I guess when I think of books I was reading at the age that these were popular, I was a bit young for the audience, which is probably why I didn't really get into them. So I was reading like Magic Tree House, and I was like, I don't feel like those characters ever changed. But that was kind of the point of the series, was that every book you could pick up, there wasn't a bigger overarching narrative. But it is impressive to me to see them caring so much about the change and transformation of the characters in a book that's aimed at kids. And I think, like, it's like I always say about this series, like, I appreciate how it takes kids' ability to consume media seriously. Yeah. Like, it doesn't just write them off as like, they'll read it because it's fun and punchy and actiony. And it's like, that might be what hooks them in, but like, they deserve and enjoy like actual stories.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a hard book, I think. Like, I think that was...
It was.
And I do think it's one of the stranger narrative shapes. Like, it's so hard still, having, like, read this book multiple times, and we've talked about it so much, but, like, getting the fly part in, like, the chat room part, the Wah building, and then everything with the siege, which, like, the siege on the mansion stands out to me so much, and everything else just kind of gets lost. Like, it's a weird shape. Like,
well, and those other sections, like the whole Wah building thing, there's some way in which that's so detached from who Fenestre is. Like, we're building him up as a character, but like we're not interacting with him and we're not seeing him. So so it feels kind of immaterial when we finally do meet him, and then he ends up being such a good character.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was totally prepared for him to not matter.
Yeah.
And for this to be like a bubble book and like not have deeper implications.
But I do want to say, like, something I think thematically that is really fascinating about the chat room and the, like, they even hit this note where they're talking about, Fenestre even says, yes, the website, the mix of fact and fiction. And I believe he uses that exact line. And it's just really remarkable how much the disorientation of this book is similar to, like, the disorientation one experiences now consuming media on social media. It's like, you really don't know if an AI made it. You don't know if these people have like real information to give. There's all sorts of second guessing. And that was already happening on the internet like 30 years ago or whatever, or 25 years ago.
In Steins Gate, there's a character who is revealed to be, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of John Titor. Around the year 2000, this person blew up on message boards, claiming to be a time traveler, and like had a whole thing about how his time travel machine worked and like all these things and blah, blah, blah. And in Steins Gate, one of the characters is revealed as being John Titor, but it's a different reality. So like in this world line, as they're called, like John Titor came at a different time and did different things and blah, blah, blah. But like he says like, oh, I had to mix in some untrue things so that the people who are looking for me, like the evil organization that I'm like trying to stop from taking over the world, would think I was just another crazy person posting on the internet. But I was trying to get enough true information out there that if anybody who did know how this worked saw it, they could contact me.
Oh, obfuscation. It's an important
it's
technique.
like that same, like, we have to hide. It's like we have to, because the only people who are going to interact with the Yeerk site are people who actually know the Yeerks exist. And that's essentially, that that's not strictly true. Some of the people were just crazies, but that's how he knew that some of the people were real. You know what I mean? Like, it was unlikely on a site that was just, that had some true things and some fake things.
There's such an immeasurable or like uncalculatable or unquantifiable. That's what I'm looking for. Like there's a remarkable unquantifiable burden that we're bearing now for the price of this disinformation. Like it's like to the point where like it just does skew reality and people are very disoriented. And this book really forced you to sit in that. And and it wasn't doing it explicitly to this current moment, which is obviously depressing and fraught. And I'm not wise enough to talk about that. But I just think like this book was the right one to be reading.
Yeah.
As like with the election and all that stuff.
Are we ready to?
Oh, we have to do our game.
I'm ready. That's why I kind of.
It's game time.
I went to the background, so I have it.
Did you write your
just now?
Come up with your thing. So the game we're talking about, we've only done this with the last couple of books, but we've done versions of it before. So it's like there's a little tagline on the front of each book, and sometimes it's related to what happens in the book, and sometimes it isn't. But
sometimes it's really just there.
So
like
now,
for example, for this book, The Warning, which is about a rhino that Jake met, the little tagline is, "Now it'll take more than the truth to set you free," which actually is shockingly relevant.
That actually kind of does apply, because there's a lot of mixing truth and fiction in here. But in other ones, it was just like, the Yeerks are out there.
All right, so Eddie is going to make up 2 fake ones to mix in with the real one. And you also want to shuffle the order. And especially don't say anything like that. Like, okay, this is the real one. Don't say that, Eddie, before you say the real one. But Eddie's going to say 3 of them, and we have to guess what the real one actually is.
Okay.
Remember not to giggle at your own jokes.
So tell me the real one first, so I know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, say the real one now. So that we...
Okay. Do I tell you? I tell you the title, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The title, and then describe what they're morphing into.
The underground.
Okay, so it's. Please, why are you looking at it, Chris?
I'm not looking at it. I just know the title.
Okay, so we have this. It's Rachel turning into a bat, a vampire bat.
Very exciting.
It's called The Underground.
That actually is extremely intriguing. I'm here for that.
There's a really cool pink sky behind her. She's taking flight. Okay, and our 3 taglines are: "There's nothing to fear but the Yeerks themselves. Something's calling from the earth, waiting in the shadows. Monsters aren't real, or are they?"
Monsters aren't real, or are they, based on how much you blinked when you said them?
I'm going to go with the second one because I think it's really good. The first one, why'd you give us an easy one like that? Why'd you make it a little Franklin Delano Roosevelt or whatever?
Yeah.
Guess what? You're both wrong.
I'm going to go with number 2.
We're
It's
both
number
wrong.
1?
The only thing to fear is the Yeerks themselves?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow. That's incredible.
You did identical blinking patterns on the first 2, and then you blinked differently on the last one. That's why I went with it.
Wow, I wasn't paying attention.
It's always good to look at the... Yeah, that's incredible. That is the worst tagline I think I've heard.
That's
today.
pretty bad.
I was worried. I was like, the second one's too long. It's going to give it away that it's fake.
What was the second one again?
Something's calling from the earth, waiting in the shadows.
I love that. And it's
I didn't think that one. Yeah, I thought that one might be a little too long, but I thought the first one was too long too. That was a part, another part of the reason I picked the third one was like, those are long.
Holy shit! Nicely done. You win. What do you win?
Us, yeah.
Yeah.
You win.
You've
Price
bested the Baldies once again.
I think it just balances out the fact that I always lose when I try to guess them. So.
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon!